Outbreak continues to surge. The White House is now considering a ban on flights between the United States and mainland China. This is Americans arriving in California from Wuhan, China.
201 American passengers. They landed this morning here in Southern California from Wuhan, China, and all of them received health screenings while they were in Anchorage, Alaska last night while the plane was refueling. And, of course, as you can imagine, these passengers were very relieved to arrive home safely. But this flight was actually supposed to land at the Ontario airport, but instead landed at the March Air Force Base in Riverside this morning. And the U.S. government was chartering the plane to fly out diplomats and other Americans from the U.S. consulate in Wuhan, where the latest coronavirus outbreak started. Now, the plane landed Tuesday night in Anchorage, Alaska, where they all received those health screenings.
This hour, though, in Illinois, where health officials have confirmed a second U.S. patient has tested positive for the deadly coronavirus. The virus originated in China. More than 30 million people in 13 Chinese cities are now under lockdown. At least 26 people have died from the illness, while the number of confirmed cases rose to 830. A massive construction effort to build a new hospital is underway in Wuhan. That is the epicenter of the outbreak, and that is where we find Ramy Inocencio, who's in Beijing on the eve of the Lunar New Year, which is China's busiest travel season. He has more on the response there.
Beijing's motto might as well be keep calm and carry on, but quickly. Chinese state media broadcast Chinese President Xi Jinping enjoying a festive and relaxed state banquet. However, this is in stark contrast to the jarring pictures we're seeing coming out of those lockdown cities. And now many fairs have been canceled during this holiday season. Not only that, the Forbidden City, famous across China and around the world, stands dark and closed to tourists as of Saturday.
This is how people in Wuhan are responding to the city's lockdown. Turmoil at the supermarkets as shelves go bare, and massive overcrowding in waiting rooms to get screened at the hospital. This woman cries out for a doctor to save her life after finding out she has a fever. Residents are growing more fearful by the day of catching the deadly virus.
It's quiet. Even inside of my apartment, it's never this quiet.
American Scott Alice is an English teacher in Wuhan. The government shut his school down, but he says he's more concerned for people outside Wuhan, including in the U.S.
It's locked down, but it's not locked down tight enough. That's the part that I think I'm most concerned with, is that people are still finding ways out of the city.
Back in the United States, another possible case has popped up in eastern Texas. Health officials expect to find out this weekend if the patient who had traveled to Wuhan is infected.
If there's a confirmed case, contact tracing will begin, and all contacts will be monitored for development of symptoms.
But as the number of patients explodes, the World Health Organization has so far declined to declare the outbreak a global health emergency. Now the race to create a vaccine is on.
Well, the first thing we have to prove is that we can create a vaccine faster than certainly we ever have before.
At Moderna Therapeutics, just outside Boston, President Stephen Hodge and his team of scientists are working with the National Institutes of Health to research the coronavirus. But to distribute a vaccine globally, Hodge says they need federal help.
There are going to be a continuing stream of public health threats, viruses that jump into humans from other species. And the longer we wait to respond, the bigger that threat becomes.
Ruled that a telecom worker who had developed a tumor in his ear got that tumor from using his mobile phone. It's the 6th time an Italian court has affirmed a causal link between brain tumors and cell phone use. Joining us to discuss this case and its implications is Daphnia Tachover. She's an attorney with the Children's Health Defense, the leading organization against the nation's battle against the wireless industry. She led a Supreme Court case in Israel, which actually led to the first limitations on Wi-Fi use in schools worldwide. And she's also the founder of We Are the Evidence, a group that protects the rights of people injured by wireless technology. How significant is this precedent?
Well, it is significant, but it's not the first case. It's actually the Italian Supreme Court that already established the same findings in 2011 or 2012. So this is, as you said, the 6th court that confirmed the same findings. There is a causal link between cell phone use and cancer. And actually the type of cancer that telecom employee had, it's called acoustic neuroma, which is a tumor that is being developed on the hearing nerve. Our own government, the National Toxicology Program, it's our expert agency in deciding what is toxic, conducted a $30 million study, 10-year study, funded by the by the Food and Drug Administration. The results of this study came out on November 1st, 2018, and they found clear evidence that this radiation is causing cancer. What's interesting is the type of cancer that was found to be caused by this radiation by the NTP study. It's a cancer which is developed on Schwann cells, which are cells that surround with a cancer on the nerves that surround organ. One type of such cancer is the acoustic neuroma that was found to cause the cancer from cell phone to the telecom employee. So we have evidence, but by the way, our government, when the results came out, said that, well, that study does not apply to human. That study also found that this radiation not only causes cancer, but also breaks the DNA in the brain. And nothing that this study found is new. We had more than ample evidence of cancer and DNA damage from numerous other studies.
Historic week in the impeachment of President Trump. The trial is set to essentially begin on Tuesday, and tonight the president heading back to Washington after his lawyers released their first legal argument, calling the case against him, quote, illegitimate and dangerous. While House Democrats were preparing to make their case, meeting in Speaker Nancy Pelosi's office. ABC's David Wright is in West Palm Beach, Florida, with more.
President Trump has made clear his disdain for the impeachment process, but this weekend, Trump's lawyers filed his first formal response. This 6-page letter blasting the House impeachment effort as poisonous partisanship, a lawless process, arguing nothing in these articles could permit even beginning to consider removing a duly elected president.
Is it your position that President Trump should not be impeached, even if all the evidence and arguments laid out by the House are accepted as fact?
That's right. Former Harvard Law professor Alan Dershowitz just joined the president's defense team. His past clients include Jeffrey Epstein, O.J. Simpson, and Klaus von Bülow. Dershowitz claims that abuse of power is not grounds for impeachment.
Half of American presidents have been accused by their political enemies of abusing their power. The framers didn't want to have that kind of criteria in the Constitution because it weaponizes impeachment for partisan purposes.
Abuse of power is at the center of what the framers intended an impeachable offense to be. The mere idea of this would have appalled the founders who were worried about exactly that kind of solicitation of foreign interference in an election for a personal benefit.
One major sticking point at the start of this trial is the issue of witnesses, after the White House refused to cooperate with the House investigation.
If my argument succeeds, there's no need for witnesses. Indeed, there's no need for even arguments.
Senate Republicans plan to postpone the witness issue until after House managers present their case and the president responds, as was done in the Clinton impeachment.
I'm going to vote against calling the 4 witnesses requested by Senator Schumer. They're all covered by executive privilege. They're part of the national security team of the president. They could have been called in the House. They chose not to.
If Senator McConnell prevails and there are no witnesses, it will be the first impeachment trial in history that goes to conclusion.
Of impeachment against President Trump to the Senate. Well, this week, the House voted almost entirely along party lines to deliver the charges, marking the official start to the impeachment trial of Trump in the Senate. Chief Justice John Roberts swore in the senators who will take part in the impeachment trial, all while the president's team is mounting a defense aiming for an acquittal of those articles. Now, one senator who knows the impeachment process all too well, Joe Lieberman, former United States Senator from Connecticut, who was in the 2000 vice presidential nominee. He sat in judgment during the impeachment trial of Bill Clinton and was once on President Donald Trump's shortlist to head the FBI.
We're not going to have impartiality in this impeachment crisis, are we?
The deal does include some tough issues like intellectual property theft and forced technology transfer policies. So for more insight on Phase 1 and upcoming Phase 2, Boomba sat down with Professor Richard Wolff, host of Economic Update, to break this all down.
Where do you see things when it comes to actually doing Phase 2?
Well, between you and me and the lamppost, I don't see much happening. I don't see much has happened here either. I think this is 95% theatrics, partly for the Trump administration because they initiated all of this, but partly, as you correctly say, for the Chinese also to look as though they're cooperating, they're not interested in being a problem. A position, by the way, which they have successfully promoted around the world, where this is entirely seen as an American initiative, an American commitment to protectionism, not at all blaming China. And that, by the way, in the long run, is a very, very important gain for China. It has taken over from the United States the position of being the reasonable global world economic power that isn't slapping anybody with tariffs, at least not as an initial behavior. It's only doing it if it is subjected to tariffs. The United States used to occupy the role of the dominant, benevolent, global world economic power. Mr. Trump, whether you like him or not, has lost that position for the United States and given it to China. Two other quick things. One, yesterday the United States said they no longer consider China to be a currency manipulator. My guess is that was on the table too.
There's something very unusual in this retail store in Caracas. Prices are all in US dollars. The same goes for this shoe shop. In the country with the world's highest hyperinflation rate, more than 50% of transactions are now being carried out in the currency of what the government calls the evil empire.
El gobierno aceptó la derrota.
The government accepted its defeat against the dollar and has allowed it to emerge from the grassroots level in a spontaneous dollarization process. It's the Venezuelans themselves who've come up with this new payment system.
Everywhere, prices are being calculated in dollars, but it's complicated.
I'm negotiating to see if they can give me one avocado for $1. All right, so we have a deal, because there's no change. Gracias.
Dollarization is a term that describes the US dollar as a substitute for a country's local currency when it becomes almost worthless, as is the case in Venezuela. But salaries and pensions, equivalent to around $5, are still paid in bolívares, which buy very little. So for a great many Venezuelans, like Doña Elisa, it means more famine than feast.
I'm a senior citizen. I've never handled dollars, and so I'm in the clouds when they quote me prices in foreign currency. In December, somebody gave me $1, and I said, oh my, how exciting, $1, what can I buy with it? 2 pieces of bread, that's all.
Her children help her try to understand the increasingly complicated system for using the government's cryptocurrency alternative, the petro, which requires using your thumbprint. But it's not widely accepted and has in fact spiked inflation. Those who can race to electronically transfer their bolívares, which depreciate by the hour, and buy dollars on the black market. Meanwhile, dollars are pouring in, not just from remittances sent by an estimated 4.5 million Venezuelan migrants, but also illegal gold mining, drug trafficking, and money laundering. It's a hard currency free-for-all, but a formal dollarization of the economy is out of the question, since American sanctions bar Venezuela's government from using the U.S. banking system. Lucia Newman.